www.learnonlineit.com is a comprehensive repository for online courses offering high quality, state of the art IT and business related e learning trainings and courses. This video tutorial is about Hibernate, a demo session for Hibernate. What is actually Hibernate? Hibernate, as a one word definition, we can say that is an ORM framework. So when we talk about Java language, we have got so many frameworks are available. One such framework is Struts. Struts is a framework used for designing well-architectured web applications. The same way, another framework that we are having is Spring. Spring is an integration framework. The same way, we have got Hibernate. Hibernate is an ORM framework, Object Relational Mapping Framework. Object Relational Mapping Framework. It is not that only Hibernate is acting as ORM. We have got so many other ORM frameworks are also there, like JPA, Java Persistence API, JDO, Java Database Objects, Ibatis or Toplink. These are all the different ORM frameworks that we can develop using Java application. But in our session, we are discussing about Hibernate. Hibernate is an ORM framework, an object relational mapping framework. So what do you mean by an ORM framework? This framework is used for working with a database, any database application. So before this Hibernate was introduced, we are working with the JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. So using JDBC, your Java application can be connected to any of the databases like Oracle, SQL Server, MS Access, Pointbase, Cloudbase or DB2. Any database we can connect to by using JDBC technology in our Java applications. But it has got some limitations. In order to overcome that limitations, Hibernate framework is introduced and ORM framework is introduced. So we'll discuss about what are all the limitations of JDBC in our course. So ORM framework is nothing but, see for example, when you talk about Oracle database, let us assume we are working with the Oracle database. And in this Oracle database, we have got a table called student, for example. And this student table is nothing but a database table. This student table, we have got something like stud ID is one column, which is of number type. Then S name is nothing but student name, which is of varchar. Email address of the student, that is nothing but that is also varchar. And mobile number of the student, that is also we are giving it as varchar. So in our Oracle database, we have got a table called student, and that student table contains 4 columns with the stud ID, S name, email and mobile. Now in this database, we can store some records. For example, 101 is the student ID. The name of the student is Sunil Joseph. Email is sunil@learnonlineit.com and the mobile is 123456. So this is one record we have inserted in our Oracle database. The same way you can insert any number of records into Oracle database, into student table. So next student is Karim. Karim@learnonlineit.com and the mobile number is 123456. So in our student table, we are having 2 records. So when we talk about why this ORM framework is introduced, it is introduced, for example, if you are developing a JDBC application, only with the knowledge of Java or JDBC API, we cannot develop a database application. If you want to develop a database application in JDBC, we need to initialize the driver, you have to connect to the database, you have to create a statement or prepared statement object, then you have to pass the SQL query. So that means if you want to develop a database application using Java, you require the knowledge about SQL language also. If you're not having the knowledge about SQL, you cannot work with that database. So that means when we are developing an application, we need to spend most of the time to generate the query. In a real-time scenario, we are working with multiple tables, 6 or 7 tables at a time. We need to generate a query to work with the multiple tables. So it will take a lot of time. It will take a lot of time. So in order to overcome that, so as a Java programmer, he should not be aware about SQL language. Without SQL knowledge also, he should be able to work with the database. For that purpose, Hibernate is introduced. So how it is possible? This is possible by using Pojo classes or Java beans. So what do you mean by Pojo class? Pojo class is nothing but plain old Java objects. Plain old Java objects. So what is actually plain old Java objects? Plain old Java objects is nothing but a Java class which has got some properties, and every property has got accessor and mutator methods. Accessor is nothing but getter method. Mutator is nothing but setter method. Every class, Pojo class is nothing but a normal class which has got its own properties, and every property has got getter and setter methods. So what we need to do is, if in order to work with this particular table, what you need to do is you create a class. So I am creating a class with the name of stud. So inside this class, you declare the member data. So I am declaring the member data. Access specifier is given as private integer SID for stud ID column, then private string yes name, email and mobile. These are the 3 other member data of the stud class. So when you see this stud class, whatever properties we have given, these properties are similar to the columns of your student table. Now what we need to do is, for every property, as I told you before in Pojo class, for every property you need to have a setter and getter methods. So public integer get SID, return SID. Public void set SID, integer n, SID is equal to n. The same way you create the getter and setter methods for sname, email and mobile. So one more method let us write. So this is of type string get sname, return sname. This is the getter method. Set sname, the value is of string type, sname is equal to n. The same way you design getter and setter methods for email and mobile. So this class is what we call it as a Pojo class. It is not having any other additional interfaces or classes, nothing at all. Something like EGB or something, we don't have any session context or entity context, nothing at all. So this class is a normal class which has got some pro-form member data which is similar to student table columns. So it's not a must that the names of the columns and the Pojo field should be the same, and every property should have a getter and setter methods. Then what I will do is I'll create a student object. Stud st is equal to new student. Student st is equal to new student. So when you create a student object, the default constructor will be executed and all the properties of the student object will be assigned with the default values. So st.sid will be 0, st.sname will be null, st.email will be null and st.mobile will be null. By using the setter methods, you can assign some values. For example, st.set sid 103, st.set yesname Divakar, st.set email Divakar at learnonline.com. it.com. st dot set mobile. So we given some values. Now this student object has got all the values. The student ID is 103, student name is Divakar, student email is divakar at learnonlineit.com, and the mobile is this one. Now what we need to do is, I just want to say some object dot save. I'll tell you what is that some object later. Save st. When I say this save st, what should happen is this student object, someone should use the getter methods and it should retrieve the values and it should be entered as a record in your table. So name should come as Divakar at learnonlineit.com, and corresponding mobile number also should come in the database. So are we using any queries here? We are not using any queries, only one method we have used, that is save. So this technology, how we can implement, that is what we call it as ORM. So we have got an object, that object is mapped as a record in our relational database. The same way, it is not that only you can insert a record. So it is basically, fundamental thing is we can perform CRUD operations. What is CRUD? Create, retrieve, update and delete operations. We can insert a new record, we can retrieve some record or all the records or whatever the condition, based on the condition we can retrieve the records. We can update an existing object and also you can delete an existing object, existing record. So when we are retrieving the record, suppose 101 record is there. This record I want to get it as a stud type of object. The same way I have got a stud object, that student object, if I say delete, the record should be deleted from our database. So this concept is what we are discussing about Hibernate. And in our Hibernate session, we are discussing about the different topics are, we'll discuss about the introduction part, then advantages of Hibernate compared to JDBC. So what are all the, why this Hibernate framework is introduced even though we were having the JDBC technology. Then how this Hibernate is working, what are all the configuration files and mapping files are required. Then what do you mean by object relational mapping. Then we will perform the CRUD operations, how to insert a record, update a record, delete a record and retrieve a record using Hibernate. Then we will implement that application using some IDEs like MyEclipse or NetBeans or Exadel Studio. Any of these IDEs we can use and we can implement our Hibernate application. Then how to work with the multiple tables, relationships or associations. So we have got multiple relationships can be established, one to many, many to one, many to many, many to one. All these relationships can be maintained. How it is possible with the help of Hibernate. Then after that we'll discuss about Hibernate query language, HQL. So this normally, in order to work with the database, we are working with SQL, structured query language. But in the case of Hibernate, we are working with our POJO objects. So there we are using HQL, Hibernate query language. Then after that we'll discuss about criteria queries, query by criteria and also query by example. And along with that we'll discuss about restrictions. When we are retrieving a record, what all restrictions we want to do, how to retrieve the data, whether you want to retrieve the records in ascending order or descending order. And also apart from that, we will see when you are developing a Hibernate application, in some rare cases, what I told you before is Hibernate is introduced so that you don't want to use any SQL queries. But in some cases, you have to use native SQL also. How to use native SQL in our Hibernate. So these are all the topics we are discussing in our Hibernate course. So what all things we discuss? Hibernate is an open source object relational mapping tool for Java. To simplify the development of application, instead of using JDBC API, we can use JPA or JDO or TopLink or Hibernate or Hibernate, etc. These products, all these products are called as ORM products. To access the data available in a table using Hibernate, we don't want to use any SQL query, we need to use only POJO classes. a normal class which has got some properties, and every property has got getter and setter method, accessor and mutator methods. So to develop a Hibernate application, we can use tools like MyEclipse or Exadel Studio, WebLogic Workshop, etc. So for generating Pojo class, you don't want to do manually how to create a Pojo class, or you don't want to create a Pojo class, you don't want to create a Hibernate mapping file or a Hibernate configuration file. Everything can be created automatically by using any of the IDEs of Java, by using reverse engineering concepts. Hibernate goal is to relieve the developer from 95% of common data persistence related programming task. So if I am the programmer, I don't want to think of how the record can be inserted into multiple tables, how the load balancing can be done. Everything will be taken care by Hibernate itself. No need of writing any queries, but some idea about JDBC is required. So what is JDBC driver? What is a URL? How can you connect to a database? That is URL, username, password. Only that awareness is sufficient. When you say save, Hibernate will create the corresponding query, and Hibernate is acting as a service layer. This is what the demo session about Hibernate. And www.learnonlineit.com contains different video tutorials, and we are conducting different online training sessions in Visual Basic, visualbasic.net, VB.net, ASP.net, SQL Server DBA, Core Java, Advanced Java, J2EE with all the advanced topics of Hibernate, Spring, Ajax Web Services, etc., struts. And along with that, we have got PHP with the MySQL and Joomla. So these are all the things that we are providing for online training and also video tutorial. Thank you. We welcome you all to www.learnonlineit.com. Thank you once again.